Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for joining me. Got a special guest today, someone who's really going to pour into you, give you tools and tactics to help you in your career, to help you potentially in business, and also just in the area of influence. We're going to talk about story. He is a master storyteller. He helps founders, he helps entrepreneurs, he helps career professionals to communicate more clearly and to influence more effectively. He is a two-time South by Southwest speaker and the founder of StoryKate. And I recently went through one of his online trainings, a 3-day challenge called From Confusion to Clarity, just to see what he delivers and experience it for myself. And I walked away with tons of insights and knowledge and tools to help me in my own journey. So, Stan Miller, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I appreciate the time and have been looking forward to this conversation for a couple of weeks. So thanks.
So, I want to start here. I want to talk about why story matters, what kind of difference it can make in our lives, and how it can help us professionally and in leadership, and how we can influence better. So, give us the overall premise of why story matters so much.
Yeah, I mean, the story is the ultimate connector, right? And so when we think about our career, we're working with people, we're connecting with human beings, we have supervisors and leaders, and then we're moving through the journey that is our career. And we oftentimes will think that heads down work. I am just great at what I do. My work should speak for itself. Is the spark that led me to launch StoryKate. Because I, like so many people, was a heads down hard worker, got tapped on the shoulder for lots of great projects. And when it came time to get ahead and get promotions, when it was, it was time to be seen and not, and heard, I was not representing myself and telling my story. So I was not in control of any sort of narrative in my career. And that led to a lot of disappointment. It led to a lot of people who had less experience than me getting promotions, and the heads down hard work people that want to get ahead need desperately, this is something I've learned over time, they need storytelling. And we think that story is reserved for the Netflix special you watch, or the movie that you love. And story is one of these things. It's an oral tradition passed down through generations and generations. And so when you understand framework and pattern of story, you start to understand, okay, how can I use this for myself? It's not just for big companies with great marketing campaigns and huge budgets. It can be for me. And so I have honed in, if you will, on this idea of being able to help people tell their stories in a more compelling way to help build trust and belief in their audience. And in my context, the audience happens to be people that we work with and leaders.
So, you learned this through your experience, and I know your journey. I mean, you've had a lot of success, professionally, and you were a sales leader before launching out on your own, but clearly you learned it, you experienced it. So what changed then for you when you figured it out?
Yeah, so I mean, I was stuck in the middle for 12 years in a large telecom company, and I was a high potential leader, all of the trainings, all of the accolades that you could get,
Mhm.
and I couldn't seem to crack the code of
Mm.
getting to a higher level in leadership. And I desperately sought after that in a way that was every time I would go for a job and I wouldn't get it, or every time I would try to go for some higher level, I would go through these periods of extreme disappointment.
Mhm.
And at the end of that journey, I kept looking at myself in the mirror saying, okay, are you going to die the phone guy? And the answer was no, but the difference between me and many other people is I was really willing to do something about it. And then I moved and did a career pivot over in the financial space and worked for a startup. And what I figured out during that journey was startup was a world where storytelling really was planted firmly and took root because we were
Mm,
creating things that didn't exist.
mm,
And so, as the founder of that company and all of the leaders at that company were just great storytellers. So I happened to in that journey, I went on a educational journey, and that educational journey led me to a marketing program where storytelling was my first course,
mm,
and that's when I had my light bulb moment, Jeremy.
mm.
And all of a sudden, I realized, okay, storytelling, I'm learning storytelling for marketing and for business, but I had this paradigm shift and I said, well, what if I could learn storytelling for myself and then create a business because I'm entrepreneurial and create a
Mhm.
business to help other people. And I just went on that journey. And what happened in the next 5 years was I moved from middle management at the startup to a C-level sales leader and was reporting to the CEO and meeting with the board at that company and moving that company towards profitability.
So in that journey, then when you figured it out, and this light bulb moment, came to you, said, concept of story, applying that to yourself and your career. Uh, what did you specifically do? I guess in that progression where you did move up, you
Mhm.
can attribute that to
Mhm.
the concept of story. Like, can you give some practical examples on how you applied that?
Sure, there's one paradigm shift that everyone listening right now should adopt if you're in your career. And that is that you are not the hero of your stories. And so, what I did essentially, very, very intentionally, is I stopped positioning myself for the accolades, achievements, awards,
Mm,
and I started viewing all of my employees, all of my customers, everyone who I served as the hero, and we call it the protagonist with
mhm.
problems, desires, and consequences. And I just sort of thought about those narratives differently. When I was doing a presentation deck, I would always, my audience was my protagonist. They were the main character and what they wanted and needed and desired. And if they didn't get, there were consequences. I would start to develop that inside of my language. Now, this isn't.
Hmm.
I mean, you can look at if you're curious about studying this, you can look at people like Donald Miller, and you can look at
Mhm.
Nancy Duarte. You can look at all of the storytelling gurus, for lack of a better term.
Right.
They all have elements of this where there are these paradigm shifts in your life. Most of them teach it for business, though. Most of them teach it for large companies that can pay them massive sums of money or coaches who are starting coaching business. I just found my unique niche was
Yeah.
to help the mid career person that was stuck and help
Yeah.
them have this paradigm shift, help them experience this shift.
So it's really this mental shift
Hmm.
where
Hmm.
we change our view, maybe I guess of ourselves a little bit, right? Because you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, and correct me if I'm
Hmm.
wrong, we go through our career, right? We're out there, we're trying to succeed, right? We're trying to deliver results, maybe get some accolades.
Yeah,
That becomes about us, I guess. Then so now we kind of get this mindset of I'm the hero because I did all this stuff.
sure.
Is that accurate? So we shift away from that, and it's more who's my audience and what matters to them, and how do I serve them better? Is
Yeah, I mean, I
that
think
fair?
like I'll ask you the question: have you ever been told to sell yourself?
I think indirectly, maybe not those words, but certainly
Have you ever felt
in
like you've had to
in an
sell yourself?
interview, yeah, you had to sell what you've done, what you've accomplished,
Mhm.
what you bring to the table.
Yeah, and so that doesn't feel great to most people.
Mm,
That's not natural to most people. Talking about the great things that they've done and the accolades, achievements, awards, education, all of those things, we bucket them inside of, okay, let's position ourselves to sell ourselves. And what we don't realize is the person sitting across us, that's actually not why they want to hire us. They care about themselves. They care about their problems, their desires, and the consequences that they face if they don't achieve those things. While we're on the other side of the table talking about how great we are and all of, the accolades, awards, achievements, building this persona that we don't make mistakes, or we've not had failure.
Hmm.
There's a massive disconnect that exists in these human relationships, especially in interviews. I mean, we can talk about interviews as a use case, but it happens all the time. If I go to sit down with you, Jeremy, and all you do is talk about yourself, how does that make me feel?
Not great.
Right. And
Makes you
so
feel
we leave
invisible.
that dinner and we say, I'm never going to go have dinner with this person again. So, it's,
That's happened.
but we seek to impress.
Is that, I was going to ask you, what is driving that? Is it, there's some insecurities,
Mhm.
things that are
Yeah,
causing us to be so
sure.
self-focused, I guess?
We believe that we need to impress or prove ourselves to be selected.
Mm,
When what we actually need is to show empathy and authority and to make them feel like we understand how to help people like them.
mm. Say
And
that again.
the only way to prove, and the only way to show that is to tell stories of how we've helped people like them.
I like that. I'm processing that because I think that was a good line. Can you say it again?
Yeah. So when we meet with someone, we're dumping, we're proving, we're
Hmm.
showing up to impress. They want to know if we can help people like them with problems like them, with desires like them, with consequences that they face. And so the only way for us to effectively do that is to tell stories about how we've helped other people like them. But in those
Mm,
stories, we must reveal the problems, the consequences,
mm,
the desires in order for them to understand the story. And we can go
mm.
deep into
That's
frameworks
good.
and patterns, which we may or may
Yeah.
not get to today. But when you understand the framework and the pattern of good storytelling, you don't need a bunch of fancy language. You just need to follow the pattern.
Okay. So what if I'm just thinking about what you just said, and I agree for sure because I've been there where someone was just talking about themselves the whole time, and you're like, this is interesting. They haven't asked me a question.
Yeah.
um, what if you what if you don't have a story of where you have helped with the problems, the desires, and you have the solutions? Like, say you want to serve, right? You want to help in that area, but maybe you don't have a story that demonstrates that you've solved those problems.
Uh, I would say that right now we're living in a story. We all have stories. There's a story and a narrative that's happening right now in real time on this call. We are every day. Yesterday was a story. Today's a story, and tomorrow will be a story. And so, what you're really suggesting is that someone that you meet has never actually helped anyone.
Hmm.
I don't ever find people that I meet that can say I've never helped
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah.
So if you're still thinking about it through the lens of accolades, achievements, and awards, and you're
Mm,
justifying the story based on the end result. That is not the end result for you doesn't matter as much as it does for the people you serve.
mm,
So if we are telling a story in the context of trying to reveal who we are to someone, the best way for me to reveal that is to talk about the people that I help. The people I have helped, the problems that they've had, the consequences that they've faced, why I felt compelled to help them so much. And again, it may have been I was working a job and my boss believed that I could help. But I designed a specific pathway of the things that I did in order to get them the outcome that they desired. And by the way, I'm in the story as well. And at the end of that story, I'm going to simply say how that made me feel.
Mm.
You see, we don't
Yeah.
share our feelings at the end of our stories. What we want to attach our stories to is some sort of accolade. Problem is if you're in your life and you don't have a lot of accolades, you think you don't have a lot of stories.
Hmm.
But you do have a ton of stories. The accolade is actually how that made you feel in many cases.
Mm. I imagine you get some of that though, don't you? When you coach, and I went through your training and
Sure.
watched some live coaching, you get maybe some of that where people aren't sure what they have done that has
Yeah.
added value, where where maybe we
Mhm.
do sell ourselves short a little bit. Do you see that?
Sure. It's a big self-limiting belief that exists that what we did lacked positive consequences.
Hmm. Or wasn't significant,
It's
maybe.
not
Right.
valuable enough for us to
Yeah.
share
Yeah.
because we're measuring ourselves and we're comparing ourselves to other stories that we believe are powerful.
Because they're all around us these days, right? I mean, you're
Sure.
surrounded by them.
Sure. And when
So,
you, especially when you think about your career and the things that you've done, we always diminish our value. It's something that's just inherently a problem in most of the workforce. We're diminishing our value. And we're not talking about it doesn't have to be a huge project. It could be what
mhm.
you were responsible for. Here's how I help people filter out, and this is maybe what you're getting to, how I help people determine the stories that are the most valuable are not just based on the ones that they remember. It's going to be based on a filter that is more aligned with what is it had you not shown up that would have failed miserably. So what
Mm,
happens if Jeremy does not show up? So in your job
mm,
right now, Jeremy, what happens if you do not show up? Some things happen. Things don't get done. Things don't
mhm,
get scheduled. People
mhm,
don't feel as equipped.
mhm.
I'm certain of that. So
Yeah.
that string should lead you to those moments that are moments in time or in your stories that you could pull on a string and try to say, okay, well, if there's a big consequence of me not being here,
Yeah.
let's talk about this story.
That's helpful. I like that lens. And I think for me that in the training was super helpful. I had a ton of notes and I'm looking at them right now and just kind of processing that mindset, that shift. Cause I could think back to even my own career over the years and I think you alluded to it. And sometimes it's hard to recall.
Yeah, I mean, when we're asked questions that we're not prepared for, we revert to just talking. And we tend to give information over experience.
Mm,
So we value information so much that we decide that everyone else values that. And so we're going to give as much information as we can to fill the space that exists in the conversation. Doesn't work. We all know it. It only leads to people on the other side of the table being lost and confused. But we do it because we're uncomfortable in the silence. Or we don't have the right frame. It's really a lens. So
hmm
we're all a camera body, and then we can move lenses, and there is a story lens. And once you understand when to use your story lens and how to use your story lens, it's I'm in this environment, I'm bringing my story lens because I know that what I'm going to capture with that lens is going to be something that's desirable for both parties, not just me. It's like when you take a you ever take pictures of people like they ask you to take a picture. Hey, take a picture of us.
Sure.
What's the first thing they do when you hand them their phone back?
Check it to make sure it looks like a
Exactly.
good picture.
Exactly. And so it's like people want their experience.
Hmm.
So if your answers to questions make you feel good, knowledgeable, informative, that's not enough. You should care more about their experience than your own. And this is could be controversial to some people, but if someone's picking me, if someone's hiring me, which happens in real life, people hire me. What I care most about at that moment is their problems, desires, and the consequences that they face if they do not either decide to do anything with me, or the problem is so big and hairy that the consequence is in such a place that it's so painful that they need to take action. And so I obsess about those things because when it comes down to obsessing about those things, when it comes down to me building a solution for that person or group of people, I'm equipped to do that. I don't have to tell them about all of the things that I've done in many cases. We talk credibility builders. If I have authority, I don't keep clicking the authority button. I don't need to.
Mhm. Hmm. So a minute ago, you mentioned self-limiting belief, and I
Mhm.
wrote this down because you talked about that during the training, and you said when we have a self-limiting belief, it places the weight on proving ourselves instead of connecting.
Mhm. Mhm.
Could you give an example of maybe what would be a self-limiting belief that
I
would?
mean, I shared a couple of them here, right? One of them is that um, your work speaks for itself. That's one pretty big one. Another one is that I've got to sell myself or prove myself,
Hmm.
right? That's a big time one.
Hmm.
One of them is that I don't have enough experience. Right? That's another one.
Hmm.
We have one that kind of always talks to us. That is the one that I think I'm trying to find the one that I feel would resonate most with you. Um, and it might be inside of our mind, we're always doubting ourselves. And so we believe that we must memorize and practice and rehearse for these big moments in our career. So think about this. You get a job opportunity. We've all had them. I've
Hmm.
had them. You've had them. We study obsessively about the companies, about the job description. I mean, we read the job description 46 times. Then we go to
Right.
the internet and start giving, hey, now we have AI that's going to tell us 65,000 questions that they could ask.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be in your mind trying to memorize your answers to all of these questions. None of that really works because if they ask you a question that you haven't studied for and memorized, and most of us aren't great at memorization,
Right.
we're in a ditch in an interview and we need a tow truck, and there's no tow truck to be found because we've gotten off track.
Hmm.
So, what I prefer to help people understand is that you can understand your moments and recall your moments using frameworks and patterns of story that will not make you feel as if you have to memorize everything. You will just know yourself so well and be able to articulate your own experiences so well, it doesn't matter what question they ask. If I have 10 to 12 stories that I can tell, I can hit almost every question. I have a peak story, which is a highlight reel. I have a
Hmm.
redemption story, which is when I made a comeback. I have an origin story, which is the answer to tell me about you. I have a valley story, which is a story of what most would say is failure, unexpected twist, but it's a great learning lesson. So again, this teaches self-awareness. And then there's an evangelist story, which is about what I love to do outside of this place we call work. So if you've got
So,
if you've got every type of
uh,
story, you can understand, okay, I just need to tell this type of story.
so peak story, redemption, origin, valley, evangelist.
Yeah, prove, Prove.
Love it. So if you have a story for each of those, at least one,
Mhm,
and now you've got essentially a framework to draw on and a a repository, if you will, of stories that
mhm.
you can just grab at any moment. Is that accurate?
Essentially, I mean, I wouldn't say one for each one. I would say you'll have a lot of redemption stories in your career, so you'll have more of those.
Okay.
You may have two or three valley stories. What I seek to do with people is to build a career storyboard. So I give the frameworks and the patterns, and they could storyboard these stories out. So they always have them. That is the repository. And when
Mm,
they're getting ready for a major moment, whether that's a big presentation, whether that's a big talk that they're doing and they need to pull a story, or an interview, I'm talking about those moments of significance. They have all of their stories framed and patterned on a storyboard, which is a digital storyboard, which is what we do at StoryKate, and they have access to all of those.
mm,
And as you experience your career, you can add to those stories. I have some of clients that I work with that have 40 to 50 stories on their storyboards.
mm.
So
Wow.
they could go to any of those
Yeah.
stories and say, what makes more sense for me to tell?
So really, it's you're collecting these stories, obviously, as you move through your career and your experiences, and you just add to it, and you have more to draw on.
Yeah, and most of us have already lived a lot of these moments. So this is where we feel
Mhm.
behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you get called tomorrow, Jeremy, you're going to be interviewing for this VP job or this executive job. You're now thinking about all of the things that you've done in your past. So you have to actually do the work to even get the stories out. What I'm suggesting is this is just hygiene.
Hmm.
You should have these stories always at your fingertips. If you want to be ready, that's the way to be ready.
Yeah, for sure. So where should people start then? And say, and right now somebody's listening, like, man, I don't have any of these stories. Is it literally just sitting down and just thinking through each of these categories and start
Mhm.
crafting some story within each of those?
That's a really good question, and the reason I love it,
I mean, the
yeah.
obvious answer is to talk to you first,
Well,
but
let me allow me to answer that question. That if someone's listening, will give them a perspective.
please.
You can study storytelling. You can embrace a framework, and if you use STAR and CAR and all of that, those aren't storytelling frameworks, right? I can give you lots of examples how that's
Yeah.
not a story framework.
Yes, I
You
agree.
could study storytelling. You can do the 10,000 hours that I've done, or you can just decide to show up to one of my trainings. And it starts with a free training.
Hmm.
So I don't ever want to tell anybody you can't do it on your own because you can. But if at the same time, if I have a choice whether I want to work with someone who's done the 10,000 hours to become a pro and an expert at it, and do I want to coach in it, I'm going to choose the coach. That doesn't mean everyone needs a coach.
Yeah.
But If you want to shortcut it, if you want to accelerate your learning, you pick a coach. This is how it works.
For sure. And agree. You need help for sure. I think kind of what I was getting at is just the idea of us actually taking some time
Hmm.
to do some reflection and say, hey, where have I been, and
Hmm.
what have I done in these categories of story? I think even just speaking for myself, if I took some time to think through those without over, emphasizing or focusing too much on the framework, how it's structured, what I say, but just the story
Hmm.
itself, right? I could probably come up with a few in each category.
Yeah, you
But right
could.
now, right now, I would have to pause and really think. But your
Hmm.
point is, if I do the work and take the time to build these out and build this, again, this repository of stories, then I can just draw on them. And so point of that is it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of work, takes preparation
It
and
does.
thought, to actually build this. But the value in it, um, I'm sure obviously you can speak to is such that it's going to separate you, it's going to differentiate you from those that aren't embracing story.
Yeah, so two things. Number one is if you're on this call right now listening and you're like, I need to figure out my stories, I would start writing down defining moments. So I would start with the defining moments in your career. You got a new job, there was a career pivot, you lost your job. All of those defining moments have backstories. And so you could easily pull stories from defining moments where you got picked to do something or you decided to change your major in college.
Mm,
Those defining moments lead to resolutions which start new stories. And so you have stories on the back of those and stories on the front side of those. So when I'm working with a client, one thing that I will do is I will say, give me your 5 or 6 defining moments in your career. And they don't struggle with those because those are the things that sometimes reveal pain and sometimes reveal great victories.
mhm.
And so I say, let's bring the pain and then let's bring the victories to the table. And we move those and we cluster those. And so we figure what's on the back side of that story and then what's on the future side of that story. And so that helps you build it. The other thing is most people when talking about themselves desire to regurgitate their resume,
Mm,
and that doesn't communicate how you make decisions. It only communicates what you've done. What people want to know is how you make decisions. Do you fit in with me? Do I see myself working with you? And what is your approach to solving problems like I have? Reverse regurgitations of resumes with titles, names, ranks, and serial numbers don't give any of that. Don't tap into any of what the other person sitting across from you desires. Yet we still do it. We still show up, and when they say, "Tell me about you," we will say, "Well, in 10 years ago or 15 years ago when I started my career, I started in this." And
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So we need to be able to articulate that in a way that
Mm.
connects.
So just thinking about career, just staying there in that
Sure.
that lane
Hmm.
for a minute,
Hmm.
I agree. My question though is the job market still structured toward what have you done? Accolades, results. In other words, do we often feel forced into that to say, here's all the stuff I've done, here's the titles I've had, because that's how it's structured and that's what people are looking for? Or is there space for this story approach? I'm just thinking through the practicality of I am submitting my resume, going
Hmm.
for this job, and are they just looking through the stuff that's that you mentioned? Um, I'm just processing it out loud to just understand like
Sure.
how much, how hard is it going to be for us to push through that, just kind of the way things have been for years and come at it with this different angle that is different and frankly more powerful. So that's just kind of thinking through that.
It's good for you to think through that. I think that's a healthy way to process things. What I've discovered is one truth. It's a universal truth, is that 10 years ago, people got picked for one reason. Now they get picked for one reason, and then 10 years from now, they'll get picked for that same reason. And that one reason is trust.
Mm.
No one selects anyone unless they trust them. So if we believe that the number one builder of trust is connection, and connection is powered, the vehicle for connection is powered by story, then we should spend time on story. 10 years ago, someone who got picked for a job in any trade, it's because they got trusted. They were trusted to do that job. There's nuance in this. Now, there are things that we could amaze people and say, well, you'll stand out if you do it this way, or this will sound better, or you may. No, it's the person who is trusted the most by either the committee or the person selecting them for the job or needing the candidate. That's the person who gets the offer. So we are in a game of teaching people to build trust. And we have to develop fundamental beliefs that either trust comes from stories or trust comes from you sharing your accolades, awards, achievements, and education. Those are the choices.
Me, you make it sound so easy.
It's simple. It's simple, but not easy. It's
Right.
a very simple concept,
Yes.
but not easy to execute. When we have been programmed and taught elevator pitches and in business, I used to have competitions around elevator pitches when I was in corporate America. The person who could pitch our product and service the best gets this big thing, a prize. And so we've
Mm.
manufactured this issue. And so then we show up to customers and we want to pitch. And they don't care. They only care about their problems, desires, and consequences they face. When you build a sales force around that as a principle, you start to see massive success.
I was going to go there next. We've talked a lot about career, but I was thinking in the sales space too, which obviously you spent a lot of time,
Mm-hmm.
and just thinking through what the shift is there. And obviously same framework of what you just said and their desires, their problems, the consequences. So how is just practically speaking, I'm in a
Mm-hmm.
sales situation, a presentation, meeting, etc. What needs to be different about my approach that is different from what you just said, and that is I don't just come in and talk about how great we are, what we can do, but how do I shift it to them, their desires, their problems,
Um,
and how I have the
okay.
solution for that. Just thinking through again practically like
Well,
this mindset shift.
in sales, most of us in sales feel like we have the solution. We're just desperate to get the solution to people. What we must spend time on is understanding where they are. Okay? So I'll give you a practical example of how a sales effort works with my audience. So I have an audience of mid-career professionals, and I name my webinar How to Turn Interviews into Offers. Okay?
Hmm.
There's no fluff. I teach 3 techniques. One is how to build trust fast without selling yourself. Number 2 is how to share stories that connect, not confuse. And number three is how to show your value in a way that they remember. Then I will tell them this workshop is for you. If you've had a job interview that you can't afford to lose, if you're experiencing a company reorg or a shift, or if you've made it to a final round of your interview and did not get selected, what you need to do is show up. I didn't talk, I just didn't, I was really speaking to them.
Hmm.
The problem with pitches in corporate environments is that we go and we are in the format. We dump what we've done. We want to prove credibility. We want to show them use cases and case studies. And this is charts and graphics and data and analytics and
Yeah. Impress, right? We want to impress them.
right. And then we want to say, hey, by the way, we've got the solution for you. And here it is. This is the 9 steps that you can take. And, and now we're going to, we need you, we want you to be a customer. Not everybody does it that way, but that's
Yeah.
what I see a lot of.
Hmm.
I mean, we're always being pitched. Hey, I need, are you dealing with this thing? Set up a time with me. Everyone is in a grab for our attention. If you want to grab my attention, talk to me about the things that I am just struggling with the most and give me a very simple way to connect with you.
Mm.
It is a pitch. It's just not as traditional
Yeah.
as, we talk to our audience. Our language matters.
Yeah. Yeah. So what matters to me
Hmm.
does not always matter to my audience, right?
Right.
It's I'm reading my notes here.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you I have to speak about what matters most to them, right? I know that was a key point you
Right.
drove home in the training and essentially just articulated as well. And so
Hmm.
it really sounds like a lot of this is obviously a mindset shift,
Hmm.
perspective, the lens. We've got to make that shift first if we're going to make this shift to this idea of story. So we've got to make this shift, right? But maybe that's hard for some of us. We've been conditioned a certain way a long time, right? I mean, we're
Hmm.
um, thinking that this is how you have to do it.
Yeah. You have to, I mean, to make the shift, you have to believe in the transformation.
Mhm.
If you don't believe that the transformation is, if there is a transformation worth spending time on, you won't even start the shift. So it
Mhm.
starts with the belief, then it's the investment. So it's the investment of time, energy, money to solve the problem you have, and then you feel the reward. And that's a successful sales cycle. Now, on our side, as the person who is making the pitch or selling the product or service or whatever it is you're offering, it has to be a wholesome scenario. In other words, it has to feel wholesome. So I'm not suggesting that any person selling anything shouldn't care about themselves, their own rewards and benefits. It should be wholesome to them, but not only wholesome on their side. So I can find ways to make a deal for coaching or with a company to coach their employees that benefits them greatly, but is also wholesome for me,
Mhm.
meaning it is a good relationship for me. And I don't have to pressure
Mhm.
tactics anyone because you don't generally get anywhere doing that.
Probably not anywhere that lasts, right? Because the
Oh
trust
yeah, I mean,
goes back to the trust,
sure.
right?
Yeah. You have to build the trust. There isn't a greater way to build the trust than to
Mhm.
know them and speak in their voice and language.
That's good. Know them and speak in their voice and language.
Hmm.
I like it. I
When
like it.
when I'm talking to a job seeker who's on the market and I say, are you tired of getting to the final round or getting past round one and wondering why everything felt great to you, but they still said no and then thanked you? Are you tired of that?
Yeah.
Let's do something about it, right? These are this is how they think in their mind. If you can figure out we call it in marketing the voice of the customer.
Hmm.
If you can
Hmm.
truly embrace the voice of the customer and start utilizing that language and
Yeah.
not be afraid to use it, just use it. That's a breakthrough for a lot of people in sales.
Hmm. Good stuff.
Thank you, brother.
Well, I know we're up against the clock, and then we've covered a few different things, which
Sure.
lots here to practically apply. Again, it's like, how can we take this? What could we do with this information right now? And obviously, they can connect with you uh, at LinkedIn. We'll post links to Stan and obviously Storykate, the website. And he's doing a lot of trainings these days. The 3-day challenge, as you call them, from
Yes.
confusion to clarity, right?
The 3-day challenge is the way. That's the way, man.
That's
I'm heavily invested in live experiences
yeah.
because I know that live experiences accelerate relationships.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
so
for
I
sure.
show up.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience for sure. I went, and as I told you, was a little bit more kind of in the background, just observing. There
Mhm.
were plenty of volunteers who were willing to be test subjects,
Sure.
which was cool though, to do the live coaching, the live, uh, just I guess problem solving really, and thinking through this with them, their story development, and even just looking at how people maybe, and to your point a minute ago, we're just had too much information, right? Just sharing too much and losing people in the process because your eyes are kind of glazing over because the story is like going all over the place, and then you can go, hey, let's reframe this and create a clear story that connects. And I saw that, and I was like, that's powerful. So I can definitely speak to the value. Um, so check out the live experiences. Again,
Sure.
the dates vary based on when this is being listened to, but definitely can connect with Stan to sign up for his next live experience. Anything else you would suggest right now as a practical step
Hmm.
beyond obviously engaging with your experiences, but just that would help people start to think through this a little more intentionally. I love the five story
Hmm.
categories you mentioned. I definitely, for
Hmm.
me, if that's a takeaway, but anything else you could just say, hey, here's something you could start thinking about and start doing.
Well, I think, I always point them to resources that I have. I mean, there is the
Mhm.
challenge, but typically on my LinkedIn profile, you will always get something of high value for free. And so take advantage of resources that are no charge resources from me.
Mhm.
For instance, right now I'm doing a storytelling secrets. That'll be up there for a significant amount of time where I'm
Okay.
sharing a 4-part video series where I speak to this is my favorite 4 webinars, and I take them and I clip them up to the 20-minute nuggets inside of those, and they
Mhm.
get one every day. And so if you go to my LinkedIn profile, go to my featured section, you'll see that you can join that, and it's a 4-day storytelling challenge, sort of without showing up to a live
Mhm.
experience. I call it the storytelling secrets because I'm giving away everything that I share inside of a challenge, but you don't get the live experience. There's something about the live experience
Mhm.
as you know, because you've been to one of my live experiences where you're seeing people gain coaching in real time. And a lot of times the nuggets come from someone else getting coached for
Yeah.
ourselves. And so I think that's a natural way to start.
Good.
The thing that I would think about though as we kind of close is, if you are listening to this right now and you are not confident in sharing your story, do not wait until you need to be confident to start getting confident. Do not start preparing for the next level interview before when you get the call. That's not a good
Mm,
best practice. This is where
mm,
many people make mistakes. We get what we think is the dream opportunity. We should have been preparing for the, we think that we've been preparing because we've been working hard. That's not preparing. That's actually not preparing for the interview. The interview has nothing to do with the hard work that you've done for the last 10 years. It's how well you perform in a 60-minute period. Most of us are playing the long games on really big, high stakes projects. And then we go to show up for a 60-minute interview and need to be our best, and we're not. And then we're disappointed and wondering why we didn't get the job. Start preparing before you get the call, before the supervisor taps you on the shoulder. Be ready. Be interview ready.
that's good. That's a good way to end. And and so true. So true.
I
I can
I
attest
know
to
that
that
it I know
myself.
that it that this what I'm sharing, I wish I would have had someone share this with me early in my career,
Yeah, yeah.
because
Yeah.
I was heads down, moving, pushing, and then I'd
Mm,
go to the interview thinking, well, I've done all these great things.
yeah.
And
Yeah. They'll see that. Yeah.
what their criteria is not what I'm thinking it is.
Mm,
Their criteria is trust and connection right now, not what I've done the last 10 years.
mm, mm,
This is where we make big mistakes. So avoid those mistakes,
mm.
learn how to tell your story, get storytelling under your belt, make it a practice, understand, embrace the principles of storytelling and how to use them in your career, and you will be in a much better position to get where you'd like to go.
Great stuff. Thanks, Dan. I know
Welcome.
we really just scratched the surface. And
This
so
has been fun. Thank you.
yeah, no, it's been a blast. And I've, as always, taken away my own notes and will apply it to my own um, life and just, you know, again, story isn't necessarily just about career or sales. It's influence too, right? And just how do we position ourselves for influence where we are? So it doesn't, if you're listening to this, doesn't mean, and you're like, I'm not looking for a job. Well, you still benefit from story because we all probably want to influence more, right? We want to make more of an impact. And I know that these principles apply in that realm as well. So
Absolutely.
great tools. Connect with Stan online. Check out his live experience. You'll benefit from it tremendously. Sounds like he's also got some free resources at LinkedIn. So connect with him there and just take it all in and apply it. And thank you again, man. I'll hope to
Absolutely.
convince you to come back again sometime, and we'll continue to dive in. This is great stuff.
Be happy to. Thanks, Jeremy. We'll talk soon. Take care.